you can still be good and learn how to hone your craft and your skill to be even better. What I love about speaking now is that it's more than what I perceived it to be all those years ago. To be able to have an energetic conversation with the people in the room, with you here on this podcast, with anybody I'm in front of, and to remember that when I'm more in my body, the message that I am speaking can have a bigger and greater impact for those who are meant to hear it and be impacted by it.
Hey there, I'm Lauri Smith. If you are a sensitive visionary, an ambitious empath, or a loving rebel, and you're finding yourself feeling called to speak, to use your voice, to share your message and spread your magic in a bigger way, from TikToks to TED Talks and anything and everything in between, and you want to find an authentic way to do that aligns with your soul, instead of trying to cram yourself into somebody else's cookie cutter box, this is the show for you. Hey there, and welcome back to the Soulful Speaking show. Our guest this week is Jeni Holla. Jeni is an Akashic Records guide and energy healer with over 10 years of experience empowering conscious leaders and spiritual entrepreneurs. She combines intuitive guidance and practical insights to help clients achieve deep transformation so they can trust themselves, embrace their power, and live in alignment with their true essence. Welcome, Jeni.
Welcome and hello to all the soulful speaking people of the world. My people.
Your people and my people. All right, let's dive in. What has been your journey with speaking up until this point in time?
Do we have hours for this? It's been quite a lot. Of course, I will keep it more condensed. Is that when I was in my 20s, I had wanted to be a speaker, author, and coach. And so I was in sales, was used to giving presentations, being in front of people, and even when I was in high school. Oh, I just remember this. This is actually the origination. When I was in high school, I would ask people, like, we're talking about 15, 14. I would ask like business people that I knew in my life, and like, oh, how did you be successful? What does it take? What do you do? And along the way, someone had recommended that I get involved in Toastmasters. So I had been involved in Toastmasters. I can't remember when I started, but definitely 18, 19, 20, somewhere in that range. And even in college, I drove probably 45 minutes to go to a Toastmasters group because there was nothing around. Because I really liked that. I liked the structure of that, but I also knew that there was something bigger and more. So fast forward back in that place where I wanted to impact and transform people's lives, I thought, well, speaker, author, coach sounds like a great title, something fun to do. And I then became aware of the National Speakers Association. And there was a local chapter in where I was living. And I was so thrilled to go to these meetings because I was hanging around with the movers and the shakers and the people who wrote the books that are at the stores at the airport, and just being around all these people. And not every single person in there was to that point in their career, but I was just like so excited to be there, so hungry, ready to spend my life savings on this and like learn how to do that and to be able to be transformational. And, learned a lot. It was like a fire hose. I was all in. And throughout that journey, there were some really great teachers and mentors, some people who really taught me a lot of great people who really taught me a lot of beautiful foundational skills. I went to multiple speaking boot camps. I, enrolled in different things and coaching, and kind of got duped a little bit along the way too by, someone who said, can change your life. And what's the most amount you can pay? My price is $5,000 a month. Write me a letter for a scholarship. I mean, I was so hungry that I was like in for anything and all of it. And what I realized as I went through that, I went through that and I did a lot. So I published a book, I created audio coaching programs, I learned how to speak and sell from the stage. I learned how to close people and invite them on the next journey. I learned, now we're talking about back in, let's see, I graduated college in 2006. So we're talking about like 2008, 10, somewhere in that range is back when I was doing this, where it was a little bit different. And maybe you still do this. It's like send around the paper forms around the room for people to give you their email address where you can email them a meditation or whatever. Go to the back of the room and sell your, like, I learned a lot of those things and I'm very grateful for that process. Now, fast forward, I realized through that process that one of the amazing people that I learned from, he was primarily a keynote speaker. And so that was a lot of the lens that I was learning through. And while he does do and teaches other aspects of the industry, I realized that I didn't really want to be a keynote speaker. And along the way, I got burnt out on a couple of different things. One of the things was when I turned 30, I flew actually out to, I believe, San Francisco for the National Speakers Association convention. And I was so excited to be at the national convention. Met all kinds of amazing people, but the energy in the room was so much like, how much have you made? And have you made it? And do you have all these accolades and whatnot? And I was crushed. Like I was crying because I just felt so inadequate in that space. And I was like, man, I'm just a lump of rocks here or something. Like, what am I doing here? Because there was so much ego boosting, and I'm sure some of it was really true and some of it was inflated to look better. And, the other thing that kind of burnt me out is when I realized I didn't want to be a keynote speaker at the time, my impression of that speaking community I was a part of was that it was like you were the shit if you were a keynote speaker. And when I didn't want to be that, and I thought, well, maybe I could keynote or do workshops or other things, I didn't know if I fit in anymore. Like I didn't have like that ego stand to stand on to be like, well, I'm special, I'm a keynote speaker. And while that association has accepted everybody, there is still a culture that I was tapping into and noticing that was about the keynote. I think now it's really expanded, so they're not as like hardcore, but I don't know. I didn't really know how I fit in. I felt less than, and I completely just kind of threw it all away in a way.
Yeah. I hear some themes in what you're saying, like success and competition. And at the same time as there was kind of the success thing, it feels like you intuitively had an impact and transformational thing that you were hungry for.
Yeah, I don't think I would have ever been able to articulate it as such at that time. I very much at that point in my journey was someone tell me what to do. I'm trying to make this work. I'll do anything, like super hungry. Like I'll do anything. I was very much at that stage in my journey. When they said, go speak everywhere, I went and spoke everywhere. I spoke at Rotary clubs and Toastmasters and women's groups and lined them all up. And it was a beautiful experience. I'm not going to take that away, but I don't know if I would have been able to articulate that at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you decided not to be a keynote speaker, can you say a little bit more about what was it that felt out of alignment?
I think for me, one of the things I always wanted to do is I wanted to lead transformational retreats. And I really like the idea of workshops. And some of the things that were planted into me indirectly or perhaps directly, I don't remember exactly because it's been so long, but, keynote speakers make more. They make more money. As a workshop, as a breakout presenter, you don't make as much or there's less value there. So like, oh, here's a couple $100 versus here's $10,000. So I felt like, okay, why not go for the $10,000 role versus the $200 role? Like that makes sense. The thing is that I found with some of the keynote speaking back then, and I have not nearly been as plugged into this part of the industry, so I have no idea if this is still prevalent or not. This is based on like old information, is I felt like there was a lot of teaching that would happen and training that would happen about how to execute the stage and how you needed to, remember all of your moments and deliver them with impact. and like go stand at this point to deliver this word, and then to like, while you're flying the plane or whatever, move across the stage and over. Some of that part of it I didn't really like at the time. And this has happened for a lot of things in my life. These foundational or these aspects or these things that are taught, I believe always have value or they wouldn't be taught. But it's more in the how they are taught or the way in which we work with them. Because from what I've learned now, some of those things are still good. I'm not saying you shouldn't have like a timing of delivery, but it's just the time. I was like, I don't really want to memorize a speech and do it 300 times. Like, that didn't sound fun to me, to
Yeah.
have like my handful of things and do them over and over and over, even if you do get paid 10, 20, $30,000 for it. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I have an eye for this. So I'm hearing like it's the cookie cutter, it's the canned, it's the one size fits all. It's something that definitely worked for somebody. In this moment, it's even reminding me of like theater. So
Mm.
when people do a first production of a new show, they create a script and somebody writes down blocking. Some of the time it comes from the playwright saying, do this at this point. And throughout history, it's come in waves. But there are some plays out there where the stage directions that you're seeing in the script were the ones that the people in the first production did. And during different waves of theater, people would read that and be like, okay, so we're going to do all the stage directions that they said. And it's like, why? That worked for the people in 1940 who did the first production of the show. That body on that set wanted to cross down left in that moment. Does that work for you? And I'm also thinking of essence versus form. And it feels like the way it was being conveyed was this kind of like canned light version because they're trying to deliver it to the masses, versus the essence is own the stage, move to connect with people when you feel motivated, and things like that. Yeah. When you felt burned, can you say a little bit more about the feeling of feeling burned? And then how did you recover from when you felt duped or burned?
Hmm. Well, that one specific scenario was one where there was someone in the chapter who was offering services to the very like hungry new people in the chapter, and some of the more seasoned speakers who had been around a while weren't in alignment with what was happening. And so that's when I found out. I was talking to actually someone who was my peer in age, and this person was like, "You're what?" Okay, literally, we could meet every week and you could buy me a beer, and I could probably tell you more of the ins and outs of what's actually going on than what it is you're paying for over there. And I didn't realize, because at the time I thought, well, if I spend big, put your money where your mouth is, spend big, get big results. And I don't remember if I heard this before or after this investment, but I for sure heard it in that time frame of my life from speakers on the stage, of kind of like, you can't be willing to ask prices for amounts that you haven't been willing to pay. And so, being that the price of this person's course was $5,000 a month of his coaching, and the scholarship that I wrote was to, or the letter I wrote was for a scholarship as to what is the most that I could pay for this. That would be a stretch, but that wouldn't like keep me from putting food on the table. And so, being that I was a sales rep, I did have more disposable income, and I don't remember exactly how much I said, but it was probably in the range of 2 to 3 thousand a month that I invested in this. And so it was a wake up call in a way of just like, oh, that, okay. And also to like check qualifications. Is this person gone where I want to go? Does this person actually have the experience under their belt as to, to be able to help me with this? I bought for price tag. and prestige, more than I bought for like experience and the transformation I wanted.
Yeah, the money is on my mind, and the money being kind of the only metric in that culture at that time, or definitely the highest metric. Even the perceived value of a keynote is more valuable than a breakout session. I call it sometimes bro speaking. I'm fresh off a conversation this morning where we're talking about new feminine models for things. And I feel like things are shifting, that someone's life might change in a breakout session. Someone's life is less likely to change from a keynote. Though I've done a keynote and had someone at the end take a mic and say, "You changed my life today." So I also feel like we're not actually in control sometimes of how valuable it is to the participants. And I know you have the power to transform people's lives and to transform rooms. And I also feel like following your alignment is where you bring the value to people. And that's true for everyone. If you're called to keynote, go keynote. If you're called to transformational retreats and breakout sessions and wherever your voice is called, go there. And I don't want to make money bad. I'm wanting people to focus on the service, focus on the transformation that you're here to bring to the world, and then let the money fuel that instead of getting pulled into like money being in the priority position over everything else. What's your relationship to speaking now? How have things changed?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this because I have been waiting to be able to say this one thing is from working with you over this past year. I find it interesting that everything that I have learned, okay, how do I want to say this? So, everything I just shared with you about the past, I felt like I was even sharing it in my old ways, like with the forced energy, like I could feel my voice straining, more breathy, more like in the upper part of my body. And I was laughing because I was like, isn't that interesting that talking about those things brought out that part of me? And that was
Mm-hmm.
also a part that was a big part of what I didn't know I needed,
Mm-hmm.
that I really craved to really speak from this different space. Like I can feel it now. I feel like I've dropped in now, but the rest of it, I was like, oh, it just was different.
Yeah. And my hope and my belief is that there's like, it was like one more deeper layer coming up and expressing itself and releasing so you could drop even deeper and lower. Yeah.
What I love about speaking now is that it's more than what I perceived it to be all those years ago. To put on a show from the stage, to be able to bring that energy, because I sure brought the energy. I sure did. Um, I sure did. And so realizing that there are other ways for me to be able to tap into my energy, to be able to have an energetic conversation with the people in the room, with you here on this podcast, with anybody I'm in front of, and to remember that when I'm more in my body, the message that I am speaking can have a bigger and greater impact for those who are meant to hear it and be impacted by it. If I am forcing the energy and speaking from a whole different place within my body, like I was, I hope that anybody watching or listening to this podcast could maybe hear even the slightest of difference between the first part of this and where I'm speaking from now. And if you can't, that's okay. You'll learn from following along with Lauri
Mm-hmm.
that it's just I feel more able to be me and to be able to allow the messages to flow through me. and to send that energy with more intention versus making sure everybody in the room likes me.
I was pausing for sirens that were really loud to go by. I'm curious about the making sure everybody in the room likes me and what it was like to let go of that. What was seductive about it and what was it like to let go of it?
Oh, I laugh because within your system and the masks that you talk about, Peppy Pleaser for sure was like my main mask because I'm generally a very happy person. And I also have learned how to use the Peppy Pleaser mask in my life um, across many different ways. Like I can be upset and crying. I'll give a real life example is when I went through a breakup with somebody who was a divorce and I was crushed over it. I still had my sales job and I was in the Tampa Bay area at the time, so there's a lot of bridges over water. And so I would, cry over the bridge and be like, okay, at the end of the bridge, I got to wipe it off to give my chance, my eyes a chance to not be red, to put on my sales face, to walk in as if nothing happened. And so I learned, I guess, through that and other things, how to flip on a switch. And one of the things that I've recently been able to articulate as it relates to this is that I learned that if I had a certain expression or set of expressions on my face or in my demeanor, or if I brought a certain amount of energy and excitement, that as a result, what I would see reflected back to me were smiling faces, people being excited, people being pumped up, people being like, woo, okay, I'm excited, let's go. And I liked that response. Once again, we can't always put these words when we go through the experience, but I can look back and see that I liked that response. So whether it be from the stage or on a Zoom, when you're scanning the room and you see like faces, you're like, oh my God, are they excited? Well, if I jump up and down, can I get them to jump up and down with me? That's what I used to do. And I was on a reality TV show called the Keynote, and I did that in one of the episodes. I was like, come on, guys, rock your lifestyle. Let's jump up and dance. And it's funny watching the people in the room. They're like, okay. And I wonder, if I were to do something like that from a different space and energy, it would give people permission to do that in a way that honored them and not just kind of in the same peppy pleaser, meet the face type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of what you're reminding me of as you talk about it is I believe the masks are formed because it's a strength of ours. Whatever we end up putting on as our go-to mat, like I don't do the jive and jokester. It's one of the masks. It's not one that I've ever really caught myself doing. It's probably my lowest one because it's just not a skill of mine to be that kind of on command class clown funny. I'm funny when I'm not trying to be funny. You had you had and have such a tremendous amount of energy, and one of your skills is brightness, being the light in the room, and you got rewarded for it. So you did it during a time in your life where you felt like you needed to actively just wipe away the tears and go in and only show the world that part of yourself. When we've moved on from things like that in our lives, sometimes it comes back up when we go on a stage, or like in your case here today, when you were talking about that it crept in a little bit because it's like we have a muscle memory of being and showing up that way. And over time, this thing that was a strength becomes the only thing we're showing people. And that's how it becomes a mask, because it's almost like dexterity in our wrists. If I'm always mousing the same way and I'm never stretching myself out, I get stuck in that mouse position. And there's so much more range to you. You still have a brightness and a light. And letting go of the peppy pleaser means you could probably, if you felt intuitively guided to ask the whole room to get up and dance, it would be coming from lower in you. It wouldn't be because somebody told you that you had to, or the faces and the reward system told you that you had to in the past. It would be because you felt like that is what is called for right here, right now, in this moment today. And you've also welcomed back into your color palette all of the other colors that you have available. What does it feel like when you speak from your full color palette?
One thing I want to say first on what we were just talking about is I just had this realization of one of the main mentors that I worked with at the time. He brought the energy and he still does. He still is very accomplished and very good at what he does. And I would venture to say that a lot of his energy comes from that place that we're talking about. So when he comes in hyped in a room, it's with a purpose, it moves the people. And some of us in this journey, we see success and we want to emulate and copy success because success leaves clues. And that's a beautiful thing to do. And what I love about the work that you do, Lauri, is that you help people like me find how we fit into the puzzle. And we can still do those things, but by following someone else's way, it doesn't work for us. And not that that mentor ever said you need to come in and bring the heat like me, but I knew I had energy, so I wanted to like match the energy in my way and get people hyped. And I remember one of the judges being like, whoa, that was a lot. Like, we need to kind of like have more balance here. And so to answer your question with that is it's so much less work to be me and to allow myself to have the depth and the range and practice from that space than it is to speak from the way I showed up on this podcast. It's different. I might have left this podcast being exhausted when there was no need for me to be because I love you and I love this topic. But I might have left feeling a ways because I would have been like, oh, that was draining. And now I can feel like, okay, I feel good walking away.
Yeah, I just got the image of water as you were talking. And like if water is in a river and it's flowing, there's a certain amount of ease and like rhythm and nature to it. And if you put like a partial dam to try to go, no, the water is only allowed to go over here. This is kind of what's happening to the natural energy in the water. And it's a lot more work to focus it somewhere that's like blocking it and only using part of you, rather than let's flow over here now and then let's flow over to this other part of your personality. Yeah. What do you want people listening who might be sort of similar to you, where they're wearing masks and they don't realize they're wearing masks? They might have been burned by something at some point. What do you want them to know as they're listening to this?
The first thing that I want to say is that it's okay to be wildly successful and to be really good at a lot of things. And you don't have to have a story like any others that you see around you. Like, it's okay to have a success story. Because that was one of the things that I thought back then, is if I needed to have some kind of a rags to riches or some kind of a story. Because at the time I was doing all the things. So that's one thing. Like, if you relate to any parts of my story, it's okay to be different in the way of success or in the way of If you feel like you naturally are drawn to speaking and you want to speak, and it's a matter of honing your skills, learning how to not overspeak. It's possible that if you're anything like me, you may dominate conversations and not mean to, or you may not really have an off button when you're talking about things because you get really passionate and you're missing the cues of the other person because you're in your own world. Um, because you're seeing the smiles and the smiles and the nods could literally be an automatic response where the person is checked out. Like I'm reflecting on all the different ways that this may have shown up before where I was getting those like external check marks along the way. And so you can still be good and learn how to hone your craft and your skill to be even better.
Mm, I love that. I love that. There's a whole world of possibility in the even better. And it starts by removing the mask and really getting curious about what is my way. So maybe I see somebody and I go, I have something in common with that person and I want to use that, but it doesn't feel quite right. And finding the way to unleash your way.
The other thing I want to say is that if you're not like me, which I know that this personality and this style of expressing is not how everybody expresses, it is something a little bit different. So if you're not like me and you're drawn to this conversation or really anything on this podcast, is that remember that speaking is, this was pulling from my experience, speaking is more than keynoting. Speaking is Zoom. Speaking is being here on a podcast. Speaking is even having conversations when you're out and about in the community. And everything that you learned from Lauri from a soulful speaking perspective and from anything you kind of plug in and are able to connect with from her teachings, those things are going to help in all the places, in all the different ways. So yes, I come with a lot of energy, but I wanted to just speak because I know there's some people who may watch this who are, friends and followers and people of mine who are going to be like, well, I'm not like you. And that can be intimidating, seeing that I have a certain level of confidence or way of expressing. There's space for every single one. And in my experience with Lauri and Speaker Studio, we were all so vastly different in our ways of expressing. And every single person was able to express from the fullness of their style and their way.
Yeah. And not only is it okay that we're all different, it's actually vital that we're all different. So Jeni has a message for the world. She has a transformation that she's bringing to the world, and she has her own unique 1 in 8 billion radiance and energy that she's doing that with. I have a different energy than Jeni. I have a different yet aligned message and magic and transformation for the world. And in order to have humanity stop banging its head against the wall of like, why isn't it getting better? Why isn't it getting better? We need all the people and all the ways that the people are, including people who might identify to the words quiet leadership, who feel like they don't, quote unquote, have a lot of energy. I would argue that you do have a lot of energy, and it's a different kind of energy, just like in nature. Like water in the ocean, in the center of the depth of the ocean, is very different than a rapid 4+ river. That's what I'm talking about with the 8 billion people and 8 billion different kinds of energy. And the more Jeni brings hers, we also need people that are very, very different from Jeni to work with Jeni to make planet Earth a better place to be inhabiting. Yeah. What is the work that you're doing in the world with people? And how does speaking now, your way, align to that and support that?
The information, interesting. the impact and experience and transformation that I'm bringing to the world now is helping people. People is broad, but the people I work with are people who are spiritually inclined, they're entrepreneurs, they're conscious leaders, they're people who are actively on their personal development, soul growth journey, and really helping them to get in touch and feel their own power and to really trust themselves and to trust their intuition and to begin to see the world from a different perspective. It seems as if a lot of the people that I'm attracting into my world are people who are similar to me. Who would have thought? Where, perhaps you have been that overachiever or the go, 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 or, really have put a lot into things and you have a lot of success and accolades. And maybe you're hitting a point where you realize that the mindset strategies or the usual ways that you have figured things out or thought about things in the past aren't really working, and helping people to like trust it. I feel like I say it over and over, but it's like trusting yourself and trusting your intuition is one of the most powerful things that we can do, because it allows us, similar and parallel to what Lauri teaches with soulful speaking, it allows us to really be in our bodies and really connect into our physical and our energetic centers and connect into that as the operating system to then interact with the world to take the next steps physically, to where it's like the energy is driving the next steps. I feel like literally you could take what you teach, Lauri, and just apply it to the words that I use in my business. It's the same thing. It's like, how is the energy moving through you and how is it being shared out in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is an awesome thing to do that when you're standing on a stage or you're doing a TikTok video or you're recording a podcast. And that's my zone of genius, is helping you do that. And it is an equally awesome thing. And it is not as much my zone of genius, like definitely not for myself. Like I've worked with Jeni. I need Jeni to help me do that in my life. And as I'm saying this, yes, this is called the Soulful Speaking podcast. I'm a soulful speaking and leadership coach. I work with people who are ushering in change. And we need to have a vision or a feeling or a sense or a knowing of what our part in making the world a better place is. We need to be able to communicate that. That's where I come in a way that inspires other people to join us on the quest to make that thing real on this planet. And then we also need to be able to navigate from this moment that we're in, where I'm sitting here, there's a truck driving by, I'm recording a podcast with Jeni. We need to be able to navigate creatively to make that world a better place. And that doesn't come from somebody else telling us how they did it, whether it's the speaking part or the like, how do I navigate my life? That comes from working with someone like Jeni, who can go bring us back home to however our intuition speaks to us so that we can navigate life from that place. And that's her superpower.
Mm-hmm. And it's way more fun. Both versions of this are way more fun when we are like in our truest, most authentic form
Yeah.
and expressing from that space. It's way more fun.
Yeah. It's way more fun. It's way more easy. And the we're we're in a world that's teetering on the like the old things should feel hard. You should be exhausted after every single thing you do in your life. And yet you should get up and keep going. And on the other side is, what if it was unbelievably easy and fun and powerful and you help change the world? Jeni, where can people, this is going to be in the show notes, and for people who are driving, where can people find you if they want to go deeper with you in navigating their life from their intuition and ease and fun?
Yes, there are two places that I'm going to share, and you pick the one that's easiest for you to remember if you are driving, or go to the show notes after. But we all know that it's rare that people go to the show notes after to go click on things. Um, so my name, JeniHolla.com. That is my website. Everything is on there. I'm so glad that I come in this space where everything is on there, celebrating that. And another way to connect with me is on most social medias. I'm at the Akashic Nomad because I do work with the Akashic Records. So if that's a little harder for you to spell, that's okay. You can just go to JeniHolla.com and you can find me that way.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive into our lightning round of questions.
Woo-hoo!
Woohoo!
Oh, I need to take a sip for this. Woo.
Take a sip. Get yourself ready. Jeni, what is your favorite word?
Flow.
What is your least favorite word?
Stupid.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Okay, I do have two answers for this, and it was speed round. One is sitting with cacao, which is chocolate, and two, this visual that someone just gave me recently for energy flow. So incoming energy coming up through your root chakra and through the rest of your body. There is such a turn on nature to the incoming energy coming up and flowing through you.
I love that. The incoming energy. What turns you off? Settling. Mm. What is your favorite cuss word?
Fuck. I feel like a little kid in that
Oh my God, I'm saying fuck on a podcast.
moment.
What sound or noise do you love?
Right now, I really love alchemy crystal sound bowls and
Mm.
gongs. Gongs. Gongs.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Hmm. I don't know, nails on a chalkboard. Like I don't hear. Like I can't. I'm having a hard time finding things. I'm like, what do I not like? And there's nothing really in my day to day that is
Yep.
happening.
Okay. What profession other than yours now would be fun to try?
Mm. I would love to do something along the lines of like with my hands, hike, outdoorsy, delivery driver-y, like something active, gardening, mowing lawns, but not those things independently, but something that kind of like encompassed all those things.
Awesome. Awesome. What's a job that you would not like to try?
Mm, like heavy manual labor, and probably not garbage, tossing garbage. And I would drive the truck in front, but tossing the garbage in the back.
What do you hope people say about you on your 100th birthday?
She was so fun, full of joy, and she brought a smile to my face.
Well, you absolutely bring a smile to my face. Thank you so much, Jeni.